What if I told you the key to understanding a nation of 1.4 billion people was hiding in a 10th grade test? Seriously. Today, we're not just looking at some school exam. We're going to deconstruct a blueprint for how India sees itself. So let's crack open this exam paper and see what it really tells us. So I want you to keep one question in your head as we go through this. Could you pass this test? Now, don't be fooled. It might be for 15-year-olds, but as you're about to see, the scope is just massive. It covers pretty much everything that makes modern India tick. Okay, so this textbook and the exam that comes from it, this is what we're digging into today. And you got to think about it. This is the official story, the narrative that's shaping millions of young minds. It's a direct window into what India thinks is absolutely essential for its future citizens to know. All right, first things first. It all starts with the map, right? Before you can get into the economy or the climate or the people, you've got to understand the actual physical space they all share. Okay, so check out this map question straight from the exam. This is not your average, memorize the capitals kind of thing. No way. Students have to pinpoint and label everything from the Eastern Ghats mountain range all the way over here to major economic hubs like the Mumbai High oil field just off the coast. This level of detail, this is considered the absolute baseline. From the land itself, let's talk about one of the most powerful forces that defines the entire subcontinent, the monsoon. And look, this is so much more than just a weather event. It's the lifeblood, the engine of the entire agricultural economy, of a whole way of life. All right, pop quiz for you, straight from the exam. This is a perfect example of the kind of detail we're talking about. What do you think is the answer? It goes to show it's not just about those famous summer rains. You have to understand the tiny details of the winter climate too. And the answer is D, temperate cyclones. But here's the really interesting part. The exam calls them Western disturbances and points out that they actually start all the way over in the Mediterranean Sea. And that's a huge insight, right? Students are being taught to see India's climate not as this isolated thing, but as part of a much bigger, connected global system. So the exam basically breaks the monsoon down into two main seasons. You've got the southwest monsoon, that's when the winds blow from the sea over the land, and that's what brings all that heavy rain. And then you have the retreating monsoon, and just like the name says, it's the total opposite. The winds blow from the land back out to sea. So what's the bottom line here? It's that the direction of the wind is everything. When those winds are blowing over the huge landmass of Asia on their way out to sea, they just don't pick up much moisture. They're way drier. It's a really simple idea, but it explains the fundamental rhythm of rain and drought for the whole country. And all this talk about rain, or the lack of it, that leads us right to India's biggest challenge, and maybe its greatest achievement, agriculture. I mean, think about it. How do you feed more than 1 billion people? The answer to that question is a huge part of this curriculum. Yeah, you just can't talk about Indian agriculture without understanding this term, the Green Revolution. And notice how it's being taught here. It's not just some boring history lesson. It's framed as this pivotal moment, the moment the nation took control of its own food security. And the curriculum gets really specific about what this legacy looks like. It zeroes in on wheat production. It names the exact northern states that were the epicenter: Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh. And it just hammers home that main goal, self-sufficiency. But what's also really cool is that they give a shout out to Dr. Norman Borlaug, showing that this huge national achievement was tied to international science. And this isn't just ancient history either. It's about the living, breathing geography of farming today. Just look at the difference between these two crop maps from the textbook. On the left, we've got gram, which is a pulse. On the right, sugarcane. The growing areas are totally different, and a 15-year-old is expected to know not just where they are, but why they're so different. And the vocabulary gets super specific too. They're learning terms like mixed farming, and it's defined with real precision. See, it's not just about planting stuff in the ground. It's taught as a whole system, a way to make more money and keep the soil healthy. And that's obviously a huge deal for a sustainable future. Okay, so when you have a revolution in agriculture, that naturally fuels development. But development comes with its own problems, its own dilemmas. And this exam makes it really clear that students are expected to think about these tough trade-offs that come with building a modern country. All right, here's another one from the paper. And okay, it seems pretty simple, right? The answer is obviously waste paper. But stop and think for a second about what it means that this question is even on the test. The fact that it's there tells you that waste management is being treated as a core piece of knowledge for every single student. And this is so important. The curriculum is all about solutions. It is not enough to just point out the problems. Students are actually being tested on practical fixes, like this diagram of a rainwater harvesting system, which is just a critical technique for saving water. And the why behind all this? It's spelled out plain as day. The official answers say that water conservation is critical because groundwater is dropping, the population is booming, and you have to protect water sources for the next generation. I mean, that's an education that's really built on a sense of urgency and responsibility. This slide right here really captures the energy dilemma perfectly, at least as it's taught to young Indians. On one side, you have petroleum, which is flat out labeled as harmful and linked to global warming. And on the other, you have solar energy, which is presented as this popular, cheap, clean alternative. This isn't just science, It's a really clear signal about where the country wants to go. So, okay, we've looked at the map, the climate, the food supply, the tough challenges of development. What's the big takeaway from all this? When you step back and look at all of these questions together, you start to see a bigger picture emerge. This exam, it's not really about memorizing a bunch of facts. It's really a lesson in how everything is connected. It's about teaching this deep understanding of the delicate balance between a nation's resources, its climate, and of course, the needs of 1.4 billion people. At the end of the day, this education is shaping the next generation of India's leaders. So the real final question isn't actually on the exam paper. It's for them, for the students, as they go out into the world. What's the one lesson from this geography class that they absolutely, positively cannot afford to forget?